of the comedy circuit, Leo Kearse, and his Sancho Panza, Carrie Marks. Why are you not donkey?
If I was anything, I'd be a big horse.
OK. Well, there is one of those. Rosinante, I think it was. Let's take a quick look at Wednesday's main headlines before we dive into them shortly. So the front page we have of the Daily Mail. When will we rein in the unions? Intent on Christmas chaos. Meanwhile, Diana's tiara and Kate's masterclass in majesty are being compared. Next up, we have the Daily Telegraph. Menopausal NHS staff can work from home. There is one picture there working from home, but keeping her tiara on. And how Messi was brought down to earth. Saudi Arabia beat Argentina 2-1. That's the Daily Telegraph. Next, we have the Eye. Rebels force Sunak to back down on housing. We'll be taking a look at that. His first clash, his first disappointment as leader. The Guardian have led with doctors warning poverty forcing sick people keep going to work. We'll be taking a look at that shortly. And the Financial Times, FTX chief ran crypto group as his fiefdom, court hears. That is the ongoing story of Sam Bankman-Fried, the most extraordinarily appropriate name in finance this year. And finally, or maybe not finally, what do we have next? The Mirror, country that bans love. I imagine that's Qatar yet again, if you don't like it. And the Lions, Sun and Games. And finally, the Daily Star, cry for me, Argentina. That is the humiliation of Messi by Saudi Arabia. So, Leo, we will open with the Guardian's front page, which is, as usual, an anthology of woe. What are you going to lead off with?
So, yeah, this is the main headline there. I mean, it's really a bit of good news. So, after years of low productivity in the UK, we're now seeing doctors are revealing that ill patients are refusing sick notes from their GP because they cannot afford time off work. So, hopefully, this new drive to spend more hours at work is going to pay off in increased GDP at some point.
Because we have seen a lot of figures recently suggesting that there has been a very slow reuptake. There are a lot of people who just left the workforce, essentially, who regard themselves as unfit.
What we found out over furlough, when people were paid 80% of their salary to sit on their bums doing nothing, we found out that people prefer sitting on their bums doing nothing for the money instead of doing work. So when furlough ended, they were like, well, what can I do to continue that lifestyle? They're like, how about I get myself some sort of sickness benefit type thing.
But these people are the heroes of this story because they're refusing even to have the documentation that would allow them to get off work. They don't even want to be tempted. They don't even want to have it in their pocket.
I'm going out on Thursday to clap for these people. These are the people who keep this country going. Yeah. We should have tax breaks for people who work with some sort of serious illness. And yet, I haven't taken. Do I ever take a day off?
Such a mean donkey of comedy, really. Unbelievable. You were right the first time.
I've come in here with COVID. I've come in here with monkeypox.
Yeah, but I think the story is more of the doctor's frustration in telling people to take time off and not being able to give a sickness note. And I've had that myself. You know, I had a heart condition and I actually had a doctor say to me these very words, "You can't do comedy." And I had to explain to him. I've been told that loads of times. So
in a separate matter, Mr. Marks, we suggest that you consider an alternative
there's nothing
career.
to do with that. But I also think there's a problem with... I had a throat problem this year with laryngitis and a polyp taken out, and a doctor saying, don't work for 6 weeks or whatever. And I'm like, I need to work, I need to pay rent and so on.
You need the ego
What I want, I do need, well, always, but what I do want is not the doctor to get frustrated with me and tell me that I have to take time off, but instead to tell me how do I go about carrying on work and what medications and suggestions do you have for that?
What amphetamines are you going to make available to me on?
That's how you'd be a good doctor.
I do notice the woman who's done the Camilla Hawthorne, and she's a senior GP in the Welsh Valleys, apparently. The final paragraph, she says, I've been really surprised in the last year when I've offered a sick note, they say, oh, no, I can't take time off. I'm doing a Welsh accent. I need the money from work. They've refused. They say, I need to keep working to earn and to feed myself and my family. Then her final remark is, I don't take it personally. That seems to be the explanation. I'm like, well, that is big of you. But I mean, this is perhaps something that GPs don't quite understand, or maybe they do understand it but haven't quite internalised it, that a lot of people don't get paid if they're not. I mean, that is the gig economy, right? We don't live anymore in an era where you can just have eternal sick notes.
No, absolutely. And so many people are living, paycheck to paycheck. And, if you're a delivery driver, Uber driver, whatever, if you don't work, you don't get paid. As a comedian, saying, we don't work, we don't get paid. And it's amazing how we call it doctor stage. Like, we will turn up to gigs in any condition, and there's something about getting on stage that cuts through it. And
we're heroes. We're absolute heroes.
It is
rain
true, though,
or shine, anywhere in the country, sleet, snow, whatever it is, we turn up and we don't
even
get the thanks
shrinks
for
the
it.
prostate. The number of times I've gone on stage thinking I'm absolutely busting for the loo, but once you get on stage, it eases.
You've really taken this somewhere else. We were talking about being really sick, and yours is just, I'll go and see the doctor.
Wait till you're my age.
You should go to the loo and not go on stage.
Now, let's have a quick...
check your prostate afterwards.
I don't check it. I can feel it. It's like it's insisting itself into the conversation. Can we just glance at the bottom half of the page? The front page of The Guardian is Saudi Arabia beating Argentina 2-1. Do we have a view on that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest World Cup upsets of all time. So Argentina, obviously, they've got Messi, who's apparently good at football. I don't know much about football.
Messi is the GOAT, and I'm surprised that given that... Well, anyway...
Do you joke about Saudi Arabia?
He's the greatest of all time. Well, that is what they say, anyway. But they both actually, on the same day, they've had humiliation because Ronaldo has just announced he's parting from, I don't say humiliation, he's 37, but he's obviously been booted out of United. And Messi has been humiliated by Saudi Arabia.
Well, this is one of the biggest...
You know, their fates are intertwined.
It's the worst World Cup humiliation of all time. I'm just repeating what you said. I don't really know very much, but it sounds very bad. It's not a humiliation for Saudi Arabia. It's great for them.
Great
for them,
Very
Funny
happy.
enough, I mean, we have been long waiting for these small sides to come up, so maybe that's just it was just due, and we should stop being looking so shocked. The Daily Telegraph, Carrie, you have another thing about people working from home or staying at home or refusing to. It turns out that the NHS have a different culture.
This is the front page news of the Daily Telegraph as well, that the menopausal NHS staff can work from home, which I thought they did anyway, personally. I didn't know that was a thing, that when you're menopausal you had to go into work and so on. But they can also wear more suitable outfits, apparently, which cooler uniforms, which I thought if you're working from home you can wear any uniform you like, really.
Very cool. Generally, from the waist down, you're totally naked as a rule. So I don't know about this.
First ever NHS guidance on menopause, apparently. So how could that be? How come there's never been NHS guidance on menopause? You'd think that'd be an area they'd cover, really, but...
There would be guidance on it, but I suppose it's the degree of sympathy that's shown to it. I mean, it's understood to be... Yeah, it's understood to be a serious condition, but I don't think it's previously... that any employer has previously seen it as an opportunity to not come to work.
But it's also going to put the wage gap up an awful lot if more women aren't coming into work, and also I don't know what you get paid for being in cooler uniforms.
But I think working from home can be great because then you're measured on on your output rather than what you present as.
Yeah, OK.
So, you know, you can turn up to work and wear a suit and tie and sit there all day, but are you actually doing any work? If you're working from home, they've got to measure you on what you do.
It's got to be said, though, instinctively I feel that the NHS is not one of those organisations which could be operated at a remote distance. You can understand why brokers in the city might be able to do everything they need to do through.
But not if you're a surgeon.
Yeah, or even a nurse, or even an orderly, or anything at all. I mean, I really don't know what job you can do from home.
Well, I think the NHS has got a huge layer of... There's going to be so much data, analytics, management, social media, all kinds of stuff that could be done from, like, any public sector organisation. I mean, like Elon Musk has come in and taken over Twitter and slashed 90% of the workforce. It still works. You know, I'm not saying we can do that with the NHS or other public sector. We could probably do about 70%, though. How
would you feel if you were due for a blood test and instead of the local hospital you got an address in a block of flats where
well, they did it by Zoom.
For you at home. Right, stick the needle in now. I don't know.
We've also got in here about the Tory rebellion. This is Sunak delaying reform of planning laws, and the plan was to build 300,000 homes, but he's had backbench rebellion on this one, and it's probably going to end up with him building one broken bungalow. From about a year from now, I would have thought.
This is a real problem with the Tory parties. They really suffer from NIMBYism. So people don't want new homes built where they've got their home, but really we need hundreds of thousands of new homes. The price of housing in this country and the shortage of housing is just insane. You don't get past that with rent caps because that doesn't increase the number of homes. You get past that by building more homes. And we need to build them where people want them. At the moment, you know, new homes tend to be built, you know, way out in the sticks, you know, past the green belt. We need need to build, like, there's so much so many brownfield sites, you know, former local authority land or Transport for London land or whatever that can be used for high density housing. We just build it. We just need to build it.
But rent caps are good for a renting market. I mean, it really works for Germany and so on. If you have...
no, it's really... It's been a disaster.
It depends if the culture is about renting or owning.
Yeah,
why has it been a disaster?
Because there's no incentive. It reduces the incentive to build.
Generally they don't work when they're introduced into a previously rated. It's not a solution.
It's the one thing that all economists agree on, because it reduces the incentive.
Well, I don't.
It reduces the... Yeah, but you're not an economist.
I know.
It reduces the incentive for landlords to maintain properties and also build new properties.
They
I'm
just
a
sell up and they
contrarian.
get out.
So I don't agree with you, either of you.
I do tend to agree. I mean, I think the problem that we have is that the green belt is absolutely sacrosanct, isn't it? I mean, it has been for a very long time. And maybe you're right. Maybe it should be built on, although it does feel...
No, brownfield sites, not greenfield. There's so many brownfield sites in you know, major urban places like London.
But there is also, and equally, there's a lot of economic pressure on people to move out of London because they can't afford the rent, they can't afford to buy a house, and they could go and live in Leeds or Manchester or Birmingham or all these places which we would like to see swole, you know, to take up this burden. So that seems to me like that would be the most, like, the obvious thing to do, to increase the housing stock and make it really viable to go and live and work in Manchester and have a career that people take seriously and don't just assume you've kind of settled.
Yeah, and I guess the public sector, the government's tried to do that by moving public sector buildings to various places. But I think, you know, really, you know, a lot of people, and even in Manchester, Liverpool, places like that, you know, housing is a big expense.
So now we've got the Daily Mail. We've got the Daily Mail for our next front page, and we need to crack through these a little bit. But when will we rein in the unions intent on Christmas chaos? Is that just the usual Daily Mail fear-mongering, do you think?
Oh, my God. Well, I'm just glad they've got a picture of Kate Middleton and Princess Diana there to soothe my anger a little.
And, well, to give it a bit of a 70s vibe as well, or 80s vibe, I suppose.
Yeah. Nobody does a princess like the UK. But yeah, this is terrible news. So the rail unions yesterday threw the Christmas plans of millions into chaos by calling 8 days of strikes over Christmas and the New Year, which is just, why do it over Christmas? I mean, come on, that's not hitting commuters. That's hitting people trying to get home to their families and things like that.
That's hitting Chris Rea, isn't it?
Is it? Well, everybody's going to be driving home for Christmas. I know,
he's going to have a much slower day. There's about to be some sort of incident on the M11 now.
There's going to be a new 8 Days of Christmas song as well, isn't there, where it's just the same lyric every time. I still did nothing.
I've got to say, so far, I mean, I don't know, Mick Lynch I have a little bit of respect for because he is old school. I quite like his style. I quite like his command
Hitler
of the
was
situation.
old school. Genghis Khan was old school.
No, Hitler wasn't old school. He was a revolutionary. I think that there's a certain amount of... there's a place for old school unions in the left-right debate. So much of the left has been occupied by the progressive kind of, you know, the woke left, that I quite like seeing a good old-fashioned union leader actually creating trouble for
This is a mafia leader. This is somebody who's got power and is exerting it over the country. These aren't people who deserve to get pay raises. Nurses deserve to get a pay rise. Train drivers are overpaid.
Train drivers certainly, but
they were treated so well over lockdown.
You still got the cleaners and all the people on the lower paid ranks as well. But I do think the problem is it hits us in the gig economy, and it would be nice if they laid on separate trains for us.
Well,
at least.
That is it for part one. Sadly, we didn't have time to investigate the Financial Times and their story about the FTX crypto chief. Never mind. Join us after the break. We'll be discussing innovative NHS prescriptions, the festival of Brexit, and the demise of Momentum. Those seem like the same story to me. Anyway, we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, joined by fellow joke practitioners Leo Kearse and Kerry Marks. Hopefully they're happy with that description. Kicking off this section is Wednesday's Financial Times. Kerry, it seems like our economy might need some Viagra if we can afford it.
The UK's growth prospects worst amongst top economies, warns OECD. We've been told this for a while now, haven't we?
Yeah.
The UK economy is set to be the worst performer in the G20 bar Russia. They obviously don't know how to talk to British people, because I know most British people are going to hear that and go, hooray, we beat Russia. You know, I think it's the way to get around all this, and to set our ambitions as low as possible.
Yeah.
You know, like when you go to places like Hull and you say this is being voted the worst town in Britain, they go, hooray! So, you know, they're very upset when they went second.
Yeah.
So the UK gross domestic product will fall 0.4% in 2023, rise a mere 0.2% in 2024. That would be a longer and deeper downturn even in the forecast for Germany. You think it'd be a lot worse for them, you know, because I thought the whole thing was that the Russia-Ukraine war would affect them far more than it would affect us because of the.
It also just
gas and oil
the whole
prices.
worldwide market for energy prices has been driven up, and Germany do still have a manufacturing sector on which they rely quite heavily, and that it tends to be quite energy intensive, whereas we have a city. And that's, you know, just people tapping away at computers. But I don't know. What do you think, though, Lewis? I kind of get the feeling, if I'm honest, that these projections are...
This could change by next week. They're reading the tea leaves. So, I mean, they talk about energy prices, but the price of gas, which spiked up in August to just unprecedented levels. I know unprecedented is an overused word. But then it went negative. We were so good at sort of, like, finding other sources that the price of gas, we were paying people to take gas away at one point. I mean, now it's gone back up again. So, you know, we can't really say what price energy is going to be in a month's time. But, I mean, I'm kind of disappointed with a lot of Rishi Sunak's policies. So, you know, he said, no, we're going to have a hard Brexit. We're not going to have any sort of Swiss-style deal. We're going to stay alienated from Europe. So that's going to be a drag on trade. And also, you know, the high tax, the high spend, that is a real drag on the economy and a drag on any growth. So we need to stop doing that. And also some of the wording that they use, like a tax on unearned income. They're talking about people investing money and reaping the rewards from that. That's not unearned. Somebody's taken a risk with their capital and invested it, and that's they've invested it wisely.
That is literally how capitalism works, right?
That's how you get growth. If you want growth, don't start taxing people who actually invest in growth.
I think you're missing the point, though. It's still better than Russia. You know, I also like that you said that unprecedented is an overused word, and I wonder who used it first. The first person ever to say unprecedented. But the predictions just keep being wrong, and also what made a big difference is that, of course, China still being in lockdown meant they weren't using as much natural gas, and that wasn't taken into consideration. There's so many factors. So we don't know, but
they very rarely match up with any kind of useful correlation at all. But I suppose there is a general trend that everyone seems to be down on us at the moment, and I do tend to agree with you. I can't think anything that Sunak's done since he took over, supposedly calming the markets, but none of it seems to be very positive or sort of committed to growth or any kind of improvement at all, does he, essentially?
I mistrust.
Yeah, I'm afraid I do too.
That was a glorious 48 hours.
We were worse than Russia at that point.
So now, Leo, this has got a sort of hint of Russia to it as well. NHS prescribes warmth for respiratory patients. It's going to pay their heating bills rather than give them pills. Is that right?
That's right. So, patients with respiratory conditions have had their energy bills paid for by the NHS under a new pilot scheme to prevent them from getting ill from cold and then needing hospital treatment. Because obviously when you go into hospital, that costs a lot of money. If you can keep somebody at home, you know, without needing a hospital bed,
especially if your nurses have got menopause and are working from home, like everyone, you can close the hospital
robot
down.
gloves through the soup. So yeah, I mean, normally I'd say, you know, this is ridiculous taxpayers' money being spent on people's heating bills, but in this case, it seems to make sense as a sort of holistic measure to stop people getting ill. Although I've got to say, you know, we hear so much doom and gloom about, you know, oh, everybody's poor and starving and can't afford to heat their homes, and you know, there's damp and all the rest of it. So like, how did people live before, you know, before we had these glorious, and during these glorious couple of decades when people had central heating and everything, I don't remember anybody saying, oh, things are so wonderful, the government's doing such a great job. You know, I just think, you know, how did we live 50 years ago, 100 years ago? Maybe we need to stop crying about it.
Well, these are what we call... I remember when I had training in how to incentivise people and management training many, many years ago, and I had a proper job. And there's what you call hygiene issues, which are things that don't excite people. Nobody ever goes, oh, you've got to go and work there. The toilets are so clean. Yeah. But people will leave if the toilets are not clean.
All right.
They will. So that will cost your recruitment a lot, because they're just going to go, I'm sorry, but there are certain basic things I expect. You know, nobody kind of goes, oh, it's a great place to work. I've hardly been sexually harassed at all. If you're constantly getting groped in the lifts, then there's a lot of staff turnover. And I feel like we're getting that on a national scale at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, yeah. Were you expecting me to add to that?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to bring you back in. I don't know what you want to say.
Thank you, that's really nice.
Come on, Sancho.
Well, I mean, from what I understand this story, is just giving people heating reduces the amount of people going into hospitals, which is great, right? I mean, that's overall it saves money, but well, it costs them money. But it saves money on the NHS, right? So, doesn't it? And also, it's better than Russia, and it's...
Yeah, better than Russia. That's what I wanted for it. That's what I was aiming for. So, Wednesday's Times now, and did 52% of the country attend the Festival of Brexit? Kerry, I suspect not.
Dismal numbers. Only 1 in 25 visited the various multi-million-pound project created for the cultural and scientific extravaganza, informally called the Festival of Brexit. It seems a bit early to have a festival to celebrate something that hasn't been completed yet.
Well, to be fair,
and
it was never actually called the Festival of Brexit at all. It was christened that by critics, I think, wasn't it, who wanted to disparage it. It was just called Unboxed, which I don't know what that meant either. But it was,
no. Well, it's now been called an unadulterated shambles, which is...
well, I'd have gone to see that.
I'd go to see that.
I would have taken the kids to see that.
It's the worst kind of shambles, really. The unadulterated ones are terrible.
It's like Distiller's edition.
Totally. The kind of thing they had there was...
Cask-strength shambles.
They had a project called Sea Monster, which involves the towing of a decommissioned North Sea gas platform to Western-super-Mare. Well, you really missed out. That was something on my bucket list, you know. I was like, I wanted to originally see a commissioned one going to Margate, but no, this will do.
There was a photograph of that on one of the front, but I don't think got a photograph of it, but it was like a classic example. Do you remember like those adverts for Christmas Wonderland where you have loads of reindeer, and when you get there it's a dog with some antlers celebrating its head? It was very similar to that. This Sea Monster was supposed to be an incredibly reimagined like oil platform, and it was basically just an oil platform that they picked up and put some tinsel on.
For a Brexit exhibition, which they've also got a touring scale of the solar system, combining sculpture trails with an augmented reality. Are we leaving the solar system? What is this?
How much are we leaving of the universe?
I know.
This is what they took from you.
What I love about this is there was an investigation that revealed that only 238,000 people had visited these projects across the UK. So it was completely slammed. So then they went back and sort of measured it again and found out, actually, 15 million had visited. And that's just like, man, that's like Putin fishing for votes down the back of the couch. I don't believe that. I don't think,
maybe some of them visited the adulterated shambles.
Much better.
Diluted shambles.
The good one.
We have diluted shambles at home. Wednesday's Guardian now. They must have relished writing this story, I imagine, Leo.
So, the founder of an influential Conservative think tank is to quit his post, accusing the government of betraying his generation as it faces stagnant wages and little help with punishing housing and childcare costs. So, this guy, Ryan Shorthouse, who's got this millennial Conservative
That's just a bungalow, isn't it?
Yes, isn't it? Well, he said it was hard to make fun of him in school. You're doing all the work.
He's been carrying that.
He said the Tories have become very bogged down in Brexit and internal warfare. Yeah, thanks for that. He's really got his finger on the pulse, this guy. And he says the mini budget was bad, but he said Sunak has failed to grasp the nettle after Truss's departure and filled the cabinet with veteran ministers and become the party of the rich. I don't know how it's become the party of the rich. We've got the highest tax since the Second World War. I mean, we're maybe the party of old people who are getting pensions.
I mean, to be honest, it's a very good question who it is the party of. It's not so bad, to be honest, when you can see who they kind of go, well, at least this benefits them. Yeah. And, if I can get into that club, I'll be all right.
This is a founder we've never heard of a think tank we've never heard of who's left, and that's the news item, really. And he complains that the building blocks of what Conservatives believe make the good life, because he really wants it to be like a BBC comedy from the 70s. What's odd is he's complaining about things like the mini-budget, which the Tories rebelled against, right? So he's saying that that's a problem with the Tories.
He's adding nothing.
I'm not quite... He doesn't really say what his think tank has ever done, except they came up with shared parental leave for working grandparents, which that's not the greatest achievement, is it?
It's called Bright Blue. Did they beat that fella at chess?
They do urinal blocks.
Oh, yes. That would be a great way to advertise the Tory party.
Well, that's probably what he's going to be doing after this. I don't think he's going to be unemployable based on this.
He's basically done it there, hasn't he? That's all for part 2. Coming up after the break, we have propaganda video games, propaganda football games, and the police just playing games. Stay tuned, see you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Hello, back to Headliners. It's Simon Evans here with my good friends Leo Kearse and Kerry Marks. So starting this section with Wednesday's Mirror, we have the left-wing group Momentum, who are also facing their end, possibly, Kerry.
The left-wing group Momentum are warning that their future is at risk amid financial troubles. The organisation... Oh, sorry, I'll start that again. The organisation was set up to support Jeremy Corbyn and his radical policy agenda. They missed out the word of inadvisedly. I'm saying that probably. Was set up to inadvisedly support Jeremy Corbyn and his radical policy agenda. Sidelined by the Labour leadership, and will now begin a month-long morning session, fundraising drive. I might come out a little bit biased here. The word bias is I in based, by the way. This story is missing out the words boo-hoo. Basically, The group who supported dictatorship-loving anti-Semitic apologists aren't doing so well anymore, and really they need to change their name from Momentum to Lethargy, and they're having a drive. I really am sounding very opinionated here, but this is what I think. And they're having a drive. They're asking all their members to donate the price of a coffee. I assume whilst they're getting it, they'll be playing a little violin.
Budget.
Yes, weekly budget. But
well, what are they for now? I mean, they are utterly redundant, aren't they? Corbyn is finished. He's unlikely to be allowed to stand.
He might be mayor of London. He might run for mayor of London as an independent.
Is that right? Is that true?
Yeah. But I'm amazed.
Yeah, I've heard this.
I'm amazed that a hard left organisation couldn't balance a budget. I mean, they couldn't keep basically a coffee morning going. So why do they think they can run a country? That's what I want to know.
You have to admit, though, they did have an extraordinary amount of momentum and impact on the nation's. I mean, they came within desperately close to actually achieving, what would have appeared only a few years earlier to be an absolutely absurd pipe dream.
But they put all their eggs in one basket case, and that's what's going to happen. So if it deserved to... Well, I feel that...
have you got a list of these puns to tick off before we can just, exhaust them and move on?
I never run out of time.
I don't feel any sympathy for them at all. I quite agree with you, but I do think there's probably a... there's an interesting story there to work out the rise and fall of momentum, and I don't know whether it is just something that has no consistency, no substance.
They had very quick power, very fast, and it was way too strong. But
it's related to the previous story about the blue toilet block, tank or whatever they're called. We need to build homes so young people can buy a house.
Yeah.
And when I say young people, I mean anybody up to the age of 45. So people
I agree with you. Yeah.
People need to have a better standard of living in this country.
I actually feel the same, though, with the Tory. I don't think party members should have too much power rather than the actual party itself and the voters. But,
the MPs.
OK.
The Daily Mail now, Kerry, it seems like some European football-mad cities are choosing to be football-sad cities.
Football, yes. European cities turning their backs on 2022 FIFA World Cup as bars refuse to show games. Left-wing mayor of Barcelona, for example, I believe it's pronounced Ada Colau, how would you say that, who rose to the role in 2015, was scathing of the dictatorship in Qatar and blasted the sports government. So this is happening all over Europe with Germany and other countries refusing to show the games. Basically, people will stay at work, and this is really good for the economy. And already good for us that the games are being shown earlier, so they're not going to affect the comedy clubs, so I'm fine with all that. And I don't know how... I kind of feel that football's supposed to be out of all this, really. I kind of romance the World War I football game where two sides with very different feelings came together to play a game of football, rather than putting the politics before the football. And I'm fully on board with the whole LGBT thing, but I just don't know whether... we've held football games in World Cups in countries with dictatorships. It's not called the West Cup. It's the World Cup.
Well, we had the Olympic Games in Berlin in 1936. I mean, it was fairly clear that there were some differences on a political scale, but they nevertheless, Jesse Owens ran and demonstrated the nonsense of the master race sort of theory, didn't he? That's the way to do it, of course. That's the idea. But I do think...
what you think of some footballers just had some gay sex in the middle of the pitch?
Well, I think that should be compulsory when it's here next time, and then see if they want
the way things are going,
we'll say it's our culture, respect our culture.
I mean, it'll probably be replaced by drag queens. I
do kind of think that there has been, and it's not just in football, I mean, we talk about this a lot on GB News, it's almost kind of like one of the sort of axioms of the station, that the culture war stuff seems to have bled into every arena. And you now get this situation where most of the conversation seems to revolve around that kind, whether or not you're wearing an armband. And it almost feels, to me, as if people who aren't very interested in football have captured football and steered the conversation onto things they're interested in.
Like every other part of entertainment.
Exactly, yeah. So people who are like football are just like, sorry, wasn't this a football match?
If you try and watch a Marvel film, you've got to sit through a 45-minute lecture on LGBTQ rights before you can actually watch somebody getting punched in the face.
Yes.
It's a nightmare.
We also had that weird speech, I don't know if you saw it in the week, FIFA President Gianni Infantino. Did you see the speech? I feel Qatari, I feel Arab, I feel African, I feel gay. And then brought it down to the fact that he was bullied for having red hair. So he fully understands what it's like to be a migrant worker.
In my pants.
Yes.
But another one that just literally this afternoon, the NHL, National Hockey League in America, massive organisation of ice hockey, one of the manliest, most brutal players, posted a tweet, trans men are men, trans women are women, and non-binary gender is real. And that's to their 6 million ice hockey followers.
And that's a sports thing. Yeah. So that's why everybody's focusing on the virtue signalling, because the sports people have forced it.
It's absolutely captured. On to the Sun. And have you found your daughter's Christmas present, Leo?
Oh my God! So I don't know if anybody's seen these pictures, but a Balenciaga ad campaign. This is a luxury fashion house. It shows children holding warped bondage teddies. It sparked a furious backlash online because not everybody's pro-paedophile apparently. So in one image, a ginger-haired girl was seen sporting a T-shirt while holding a leather strap connected to a white soft toy, which is a white rabbit, which ties in with the whole Pizzagate QAnon conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're referencing it or if this is actual evidence that it might exist.
And also, Panda Eyes Bear is...
Panda Eyes Bear. They had spiky leather bracelets around the bear's arms and legs.
And then finally, just in case you thought they were just playing, there's one shot in which you can see a fancy-looking handbag on top of some documents, one of them relating to a case, a famous case, in which it was I think it was struck down. It was all to do with the First Amendment and whether or not it stops states from banning child pornography, basically, as First Amendment free speech.
So this seems a pretty clear signal from Balenciaga that, they're certainly trying to blur the boundaries with child pornography, excuse it and co-opt it into their advertising.
I mean, I will say, possibly, and they have withdrawn it now, and they've responded to criticism, and they've withdrawn the ads, and they put out a full and abject apology.
How did they not know?
Well, the
though?
question
how
is,
can you not?
The question is, to what extent do they? The question is, to what extent do they? To what extent do they listen to the photographer? To what extent do they listen to the
everyone going,
set designer?
Stop it! Why are we doing this?
No, but I mean seriously, the point is, are they giving free rein to the artistic capabilities and credentials of their set designer, their ad campaign designer, just kind of going, do whatever you want. There's a certain amount of freedom, and now it comes back.
I mean, the stuff like this gets seen by so many eyes, goes through so many boards. They don't just trust somebody to run off and create it and never look at it, and then they see it, like when Homer Simpson designs that car and they don't see it until it's unveiled and they're like, oh my God, what have you done? Oh my God, this is child pornography, what have you done? No, somebody at the business saw it.
I don't know if it was supposed to be their gift range. It was supposed to be including reusable coffee cups and dog harnesses, so they went a little bit astray with this, really, didn't they?
As long as it's recyclable, child pornography, then I'm sure that's okay with most Guardian readers.
Yeah. OK, next story is The Guardian, something you can get behind, Kerry. More democracy in Eurovision.
The Eurovision is to open voting to viewers across the world in major rule change. So basically, viewers are going to be able to vote. This is what's coming up. Which is a surprise we haven't reached there already. Viewers love to vote on absolutely everything, don't they? People like to feel involved, like it happened because of them. Whether it's we've seen that ever since Big Brother, TV talent shows, and so on. That
even do it
the
with
public likes to be.
Yeah.
Yes, really. Yeah, everything has to be about ourselves, doesn't it?
I do it in my own home sometimes. I like to fantasise I have some sort of hand on the levers, but
I don't quite understand how it's going to work. Like, if every country can vote, surely every country votes for their own country, don't they? Or
that doesn't seem to be how it works. Previously in the Eurovision, like every country would punish the UK.
Yeah.
And then, except for this year, when we helped Ukraine, and it was like, actually, you're good for helping.
And then they still gave it to Ukraine.
But Ukraine winning was obviously it's going to be a popular one, but I thought it was rigged anyway. I thought the Eurovision was like a wrestling match where it's all planned. You do this, we'll do that. And,
the UK actually won. And then Ukraine won, and that sounds like what they're saying is the actual rigged vote.
It sounds like you've got some inner pain you're dealing with.
I couldn't believe that we literally came bottom every single time in the previous sort of 20 years.
Yes.
And so it's obviously entirely due to Ukraine. Support, I guess.
Do you think people just ticked the wrong name because it looks similar, like UK?
Possibly. Final story. Let's finish with this one for this half. Or this quarter, rather, Wednesday's Daily Mail. And what are those pesky women been up to again, Leo? Stating biological facts, it seems.
This is absolutely insane. So Sussex Police has threatened a women's rights group founder, Kelly J. Keane, with a hate crime arrest after a rally 2 months ago where her group was attacked by pro-trans activists. So they phoned her up. She recorded the phone call, so the transcript's there in the Mail if you want to read it. And it's terrifying. Basically, they say, we want you to come down to the police station. We want to have this voluntary interview. And she's like, well, what's it about? What's it for? And they say it's about a hate crime. The crime is use of words or behaviour to stir up hatred on the grounds of sexual orientation. Not on grounds of gender or anything like that. Sexual orientation. orientation. And she says, you know, are you sure you've got evidence of this? And they say...
Of course they haven't, because she wouldn't do that.
Well, the evidence they do have, because they've turned up at her house before and criticised her. The police have spoken to her about being untoward towards paedophiles, untoward about paedophiles.
Yeah.
So this is when they're criticising, when they're saying she's stirring up hatred on the grounds of sexual orientation. They're talking about her criticising paedophiles.
You think it's that same thing?
Paedophilia. I don't know if Balenciaga
should be more towards them,
sponsoring
really.
Sussex Police, but it's insane. This is yeah. I mean, they're the only comments she's made against somebody based on their
she did attend.
sexuality.
There was a rally or a protest meeting or whatever in Brighton recently. Let Women Speak, and she was one of the speakers at that. This was the one where they may remember there was a famous incident caught on camera, somebody's smartphone of a couple of turf protesters calling a baby a fascist. Do you remember this? The man had the thing. So she was speaking there, and I think it comes from that.
Labour Party advisor.
That's right, Herbert. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Was the baby a fascist?
Yeah.
Am I missing? I didn't see the story, but how did it turn out?
The baby was just a trad Catholic.
Did he have a little moustache?
He had been dressed up for the occasion. Anyway, I have total conviction that she will ride this one out. But does seem like there's a vindicative...
Yeah, and this is the thing, the state, or in this case, the police force, bringing a vendetta against somebody, even though they can't actually make charges stick in a court, they can bring the weight to bear, and they can arrest, and they can make somebody who's got the wrong opinions, and they make their life a misery.
Yeah, and she's proving an extraordinary amount of fortification, or if that's the word, fortitude rather, she'll need some fortification at this point to get into the house. Anyway, that's it for part 3. Coming up after the break, we've got toilets that smell, literally, and the oldest babies ever. Whether they're fascist or not, we'll find out in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners. Let's crack through these perlers in the final section. Wednesday's Metro. Kerry, we should get one of these installed in the GB News toilet, I would imagine.
Well, what has happened is that China has been in lockdown so long that they've had way too much time to think, and this is the kind of thing they are coming up with. Public toilet smell sensors warn potential visitors if cubicle is too stinky. So these are smell sensors that would go in a shopping malls toilets, and rather than, I think they could put the same money into an air purifier, would have made a lot more sense. But this will warn people the smell is too bad to go in there. Oh, you're not going to like it.
So this is like on the door before you go in, is it? You don't go in and it goes, have you noticed? It stinks in here. Because I mean, at what point is it not up to you to just decide that
I hope it doesn't go off just as you're having a poo, and then suddenly there's light sirens and stuff and warnings all around the shopping centre with arrows pointing to you as you walk around. I also think what would be nice is if there was a timestamp of where it got smelly. So if you do go in and use that toilet, you can come out and say, it wasn't me. Well, it was the person.
No, in China, they're very good with the face recognition software. They there'll be a little email waiting for you when you get home.
Yes, and the smell will follow you as you go.
A couple of social credits will have been docked.
Well, they've had a crazy lockdown over there to ensure nobody gets COVID. And I think if they just let COVID run through the population, everybody would have lost their sense of smell, and this wouldn't be an issue.
Oh, my goodness, that's exactly right. It's even more benevolent than I previously realised.
They've also got a social credit score in China.
Yes,
so if you say the wrong thing on social media, or if you do the wrong thing, it's like being in Canada. You get your access to banking facilities and things like that restricted. So, are you going to get arrested for breach of the ring piece?
Well, more seriously, very good. More seriously.
I'm not the only one with puns around here, OK?
I don't know that is a
play on words.
Breach of the ring piece, all right. I wonder whether, what's his name? The Welsh comic, he made a whole stand-up show about this, didn't he? The tiny little indignities of...
Rod Gilbert.
Rod Gilbert, exactly, with the mince pie. And there was the thing where he goes into the lavatory and it has a sign on the door saying when was the last time it was cleaned and who had cleaned it, which operative had cleaned it, in case he wanted to track them down and sort of thank them. But it feels like they're pushing that a little bit further as well.
It's also, who's this for? I mean, is it for the people who don't already have a sense of smell, in which case they don't need it anyway, do they? It's not, unless they're worried about, I can't smell whether if I did have a sense of smell, this would bother me.
By the time you get close enough to read the one, this one's a stinker, you probably are going to be able to... I don't know. Well, hopefully that won't be an innovation that'll be making its way here, but you never know. Christmas toy market is still all to play for. The Independent now. Leo, I found some pretty crazy stuff at the back of my freezer, but this...
So parents have welcomed twins from embryos that were frozen in 1992.
Which is just crazy.
It is insane. I mean, the fact that, because when I put sausages in the freezer, after a month or so, they start going all sort of spiky, and they don't work anymore. But apparently it's not the same with human eggs. So,
and this is, they freeze sperm, of course, but these are people who actually... we all freeze sperm. That makes a lovely, tasty treat. On a hot day when the kids are playing up. Who wants a vanilla shell?
Never waste them.
Little Milky.
This Magnum salty.
Heaven is just full of all these sperm souls everywhere, and it's so sad.
But these are people who have actually fertilised embryos.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then said, right, we're never going to use these, but we'll pop these in the freezer for some other...
Oh, I think they hoped they would be used one day.
No, I don't think so. These people donate them to the National Embryo Donation Centre.
It's a Christian organisation. I think it's about not getting rid of them, isn't it? They're a Christian organisation, so I believe they're being kept around on the off chance
because it would be equivalent to an abortion, essentially.
Yes, and it's when combing through egg donor databases, the Ridgeways, that's the people who took the embryos, specifically looked in a category called special consideration, which meant it being hard to find recipients for these embryos. In other words, they were rescue embryos that they went for. They went for two little embryos that have been just sat there being ignored by everyone. Their little faces so sad, and these people were like, we're not having this. And
like Jurassic Park mosquito in amber.
It does kind of highlight just the absurdities that faith can lead you to, doesn't it? Because I'm sure they really did do this. There's lots of talk about working out God's plan and all the rest of it. They really do believe that they are trying to coordinate their faith-based teachings from the Bible and the latest technology to make sure that they don't make God angry by disposing of their unused embryos.
Right.
And they created two children who are going to grow up with the most horrific backstory. When they learn this...
They'll love it. Their first words when they were born was "What year is it?"
Yeah, they are essentially like Back to the Future, aren't they? Yeah.
It was interesting. It also says that the legality of donating embryos vary from state to state. In the US, embryos must meet specific requirements set by the US Food and Drug Administration. So they're really taking eggs a little bit seriously there, aren't they?
Are these eggs, embryos, a food or a drug?
Yeah, very good question.
I'm not sure.
I do think, though, the more like what year is this? I think at the birth they should create a sort of dry ice effect, don't you think? A couple of whizzes and bangs and a sort of bit of lightning hitting the conductor sort of sound effects. Anyway, I mean, I wish them all the best. You never know, they may turn out to be healthy, productive members of society, but it's an odd start. Wednesday's Daily Mail now, I wouldn't think teenage boys exactly needed much encouragement in this department, but apparently they're being led astray by Beyonce, is that right?
It's another raunchy lyrics encourage sexting in teen boys, study finds. This is one of those bizarre studies. Raunchy lyrics from the likes of Drake and Beyonce encourage sexting in teenage boys, but not teenage girls, a new study shows. But what's not really clear is whether the sexting comes first or the lyrics come first. You know, sexting, for people who don't know, is naughty texts. But you'd assume they're going to be sexting anyway. And what seems to happen is, rather than boys being inventive and coming up with chat-up lines, which they've been ridiculed for so many decades anyway, they're now finding it safer to just quote lyrics from songs, which are often very... But if those songs are fine for society, I don't see why the texting is so awful.
I agree with you, actually. I mean, boys are like usually associated with cheeky... Like, they grab your coat you've pulled or whatever, isn't it? You know, where...
Nice legs.
Beyonce is saying, he Monica Lewinsky all on my gown.
Yeah.
That isn't the sort of thing that a bloke would put into a cheesy chat-up line text, is it? I don't know, maybe. But it also have a word with my son when I get home. But
well, the other guy, Monica,
to look up a bit of history and see who Monica Lewinsky is.
Yeah, it was 30 years ago, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, like the last story, the Monica Lewinsky all over the back of the freezer.
Yeah, Monica Lewinsky in my tube.
But this was actually a study they did where they gave a large number of 278 teenage boys. So they gave them phones that they could sex with.
What did they think was going to happen?
And they gave them lyrics and girls' phone numbers.
This sounds like entrapment.
Doesn't it? Just totally. Yeah.
They gave them bears with panda eyes and bondage harnesses on.
It's interesting that it's actually illegal for two people under the age of 18 to exchange sexual images and videos.
I love this as well. Lyrics were analysed. Listen to this. Lyrics were analysed by software for sexual words such as boob, penis, erotic, fetish and screw, and sexually objectifying words booty, whore, diddle, pee, asterisk, 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 y, and cooch.
That's
nice
They've
how they
got
got
software
around that, really.
that they can... I mean, but...
Yeah, you know, Ofcom have also got that software.
Am I going to be in trouble now? I cannot believe that they have developed software that goes through lyrics and goes, oh, that is actually a sexually objectifying. And I've been reading going, oh, I had no idea. I thought this was a petting zoo.
Yeah, a lot of them sound like cricketing to you know?
Yes.
It's also that this is... the researchers say there's a sexual double standard where it is seen as more appropriate for boys to listen to sexual lyrics than girls. That doesn't come out of this study. That's an assumption they've made. They haven't said, well, the point is boys send these texts more than girls do. But they can't say that boys, therefore, girls don't listen to these lyrics. It's a very odd conclusion. And it's really just come down to what it is. Boys are still making the first move.
Boys, as always, have agency and girls don't, and that's just the harsh reality of modern life. Finally, I think we have this one last story we're going to squeeze in. Drinking just one glass of wine a week during pregnancy changes baby's brain structure, presumably not for the better. That's you.
Yes,
Kerry,
one glass of wine during pregnancy. You've just said that, but I'll say it again. Prenatally, babies exposed to even low amounts of alcohol prenatally had a shallower right supratemporal sulcus, which is involved in cognition and language. Because you can tell, because it's very hard to say superior temporal sulcus.
I would like to have seen the software cope with that one. I think that might be a sexually objectifying term.
So this is fetal alcohol syndrome, and what they've really discovered is fetuses can't handle alcohol.
Yeah.
It's pathetic.
Total
It's
lightweight.
pathetic.
Have you ever been out drinking one with those guys who are 30 years old, mind you, in the test tube? They're probably learned to handle it a bit better by now. Anyway, that is all for tonight. Thank you very much to my guests, Leo Kearse and Carrie Marks. We will be trying to encourage a little bit of fetal alcohol syndrome if you've got any in us. So, no, I think in the meantime, join us tomorrow where Leo will be hosting and I will be back home with my feet up, enjoying watching him deal with the talkback. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Good night.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will.